Okay, so elimination is the second method I'm teaching you. And it's a method used, make sure you're writing this down, to solve systems of linear equations. By eliminating a variable and solving for the other. Okay? So I'm going to give you the steps, then I'm going to do some examples with you, and then you're going to do the rest of them. So make sure you're writing all of this down. Okay, so step number 1, make sure the equations are lined up. That means the x's are on top of each other, the y's are on top of each other, the numbers are on top of each other. Okay, and I'll show you in a little bit what I mean by that. Step number 2, we're either going to add or subtract the equations to eliminate the variable with the common coefficient. Okay, and I'll show you what that means in a little bit as well. Step number 3, we're going to solve for the remaining variable. And then we're going to do what we did yesterday, which is substitute your answer into the original equation and solve for the other variable. Okay, so if you follow those steps, you should be fine. And I don't know if I told y'all this yesterday, but elimination's a little bit easier than substitution. So if you did not like substitution, maybe you'll like elimination a little bit better. And if you don't like elimination, don't worry, we have another method tomorrow that you will really like. Okay, so let's do example problem number 1. So remember, step number 1 says make sure that the equations are lined up. This is what I mean by lined up. The y's are lined up, the x's are lined up, and the numbers are lined up. So once you have that, then you're ready to eliminate. Step number 2 says add or subtract the equations to eliminate the variable with the common coefficient. So common coefficient means that the number in front of the y's are the same, or the number in front of the x's are the same. Do you see that one of those variables has a common coefficient? And which one is it? Which ones look alike? The y's or the x's? The y's or the x's? The y's, because they have a common coefficient of 1. There is an invisible 1 right there, and they have it in common. So when the numbers are the same, when you have the same sign, we're going to subtract them. So put a minus sign. We're going to subtract. Same sign. We can write it on the side right here. Same sign, we subtract. Okay? So once you subtract them, what's 1y minus 1y? 0. They cancel out. Okay, and that's what elimination method is all about. You're trying to eliminate one of them. So what happens right here? This one gives you 0, right? Equals. What's 3x minus 1x? 2x. And what's 4 minus a negative 2? Calculator. 4 minus negative 2. Positive 6. Okay, because you're adding. Minus a negative, it changes the sign, it becomes plus. You're adding, right? So then how do I solve for this? I'm going to move the 6 over to the other side, minus 6. So now I have negative 6 equals 2x. How do I solve for x? Divide. We're dividing. So divide both sides by 2. That gives you x equals what? X equals negative 3. So I got part of my answer. Okay? Part of my answer. So what am I going to do with this answer? Step number 4, you're going to substitute back into the original equation and solve for the other variable. So I don't care which one you use, if you use the top one or the bottom one. I'm going to use the bottom one just because it's easier. The bottom equation looks easier. So I have y equals x minus 2. I'm going to plug in the negative 3 in place of my x. So I have y equals negative 3 minus 2. What does that give you? What's negative 3 minus 2 in the calculator? Negative 5. So y equals negative 5 is my other half of my answer. So what's my solution? Negative 3, comma, negative 5. Okay? Let's do problem number 2. Problem number 2. Which ones can I eliminate? The x's or the y's? The x's, because they're the same. Am I going to add or subtract them? Subtract them. Okay? So x minus x cancels out, right? What's 4 minus negative 1? 4 minus negative 1 in the calculator. 4 minus negative 1. Gives you a positive 5. Okay? So I have 5y equals, what's 13 minus 3? 10. Look, we're almost done. What do I do here? Divide by 5. Y equals 2. So what do I do with that y equals 2? I plug it into one of my original equations. So which one do you want to use? The first one or the second one? The second one looks easier. That says x minus y equals 3. So I'm going to plug in my 2 in place of my y. So now I have x minus 2 equals 3. So how do I solve? Add, right? You move this over, so you add 2 to both sides. What's x equals? X equals 5. Okay? So what's my solution? 5 is x, comma, 2 is your y. Okay? I'm going to let you do number 3 by yourselves in a little bit. I have to do number 4 with you because they're not ready. They're not ready to be eliminated. So we have to manipulate them. Okay? They have to have the same coefficient. So I'm going to multiply the whole top by 2 because I want it to be a 2. The whole top by 2. I want the x to have a 2. So that's why I'm multiplying everything by 2. So what's 2 times x? 2x. What's 2 times 3y? Positive 6y. And what's 2 times 6? 12. Okay, so now I have my equations. Do I add or subtract them? Subtract. Which one's going to cancel out? The 2x's, right? 2x minus 2x cancels out. That gives you 0. So then you do negative 7 minus 6. So in the calculator, negative 7 minus 6 gives you a negative 13. Y equals, and then now we have negative 1 minus 12. Negative 1 minus 12 gives you a negative 13. Okay, so what's the next step? Divide by negative 13 on both sides. And what does that give you? Y equals 1. Right? So which one do you want me to plug it into? The top one, the original one, okay? So I'm going to use x plus 3y equals 6. And I'm plugging my 1, right, in place of my y right here. So I have x plus 3 parentheses 1 equals 6. So we multiply. 3 times 1 is 3. So x plus 3 equals 6. And how do I solve for x? No. Subtract. Subtract 3 from both sides so that the 3 cancels. X equals what? X equals 3. So what's my solution? 3, 1. Remember that you can also put both of these in Desmos, okay, and make sure that that's where they cross. Okay, we have to be checking our answers and making sure that that's really the answer. So I want you to try number 3 by yourself, okay? Try number 3 by yourself, and then we can start on the back.